What if the next time an employee got defensive, you knew exactly what to do? And the conversation didn't hit a dead end or fall apart, but actually moved forward. You know that moment. You bring up an issue or a suggestion with an employee, and you immediately get hit by this wall of defensiveness. And suddenly you're walking on eggshells. The conversation goes sideways. And the reason you even started the conversation is completely gone. Now, if that's ever happened to you, welcome to the club. In those situations, for me, it's been super tempting just to avoid that person or to avoid those conversations because sometimes it just feels like, what's the point? Well, in today's episode, we're diving into exactly what to do when an employee gets defensive. You'll learn how to stay grounded, how to keep the conversation constructive, and most importantly, how to come back to the real issue and move the conversation forward without damaging trust. Because, yes, you can challenge someone to grow and not damage that work relationship forever. And yes, you can actually help your employee work past this. And today, I'm going to show you how. So let's start with just a little level set here. We've all been defensive. We can get so frustrated with our defensive employees, but the truth is, should I say it again? We all get defensive. This is just how we're wired. We are wired for self-preservation. And when we feel like something or someone is threatening our sense of safety, when those alarms go off in our minds, right, and those walls go up, it's kind of like reflex blinking. It's that thing when something gets too close to your eyes. And what happens? Your body automatically and unconsciously blinks for protection. So even though it can be super annoying when people react this way, and even though you know you're just trying to help the person or the project or so on, this is a moment when we can extend some grace. And we can remember that if the person is defensive, there's a reason. And because we can empathize with feeling defensive, we should go into these conversations boldly, but not blindly. So we need to say the things, right? We need to say the truth. This is kind. We talked about that in this last episode of the podcast, but we also should not be shocked if someone gets defensive. Now, that doesn't mean that we accept their defensiveness and their refusal to hear what we have to say as being okay. It just means that we don't go into these conversations expecting the perfect outcome. I don't know if I have ever met a person who was like to the moon and back thankful and receptive that I brought up a piece of hard feedback or a suggestion that they may have missed. I mean, the resistance is a natural response, but man, it is frustrating when that resistance is strong. It is super frustrating. And our natural reaction, my natural reaction, is to just call it out and correct it, to say, hey, you sound really defensive, because it's the truth. But telling someone they're defensive actually accomplishes nothing for us. And we know this. It's like a reel I saw recently on Instagram, and it said, my husband just fixed all of my stress. He just said, don't worry about it. And I can't believe I didn't think of that myself. Or it's like when your kid is crying and you encourage them by just saying, calm down, you just got to calm down. I mean, why do we say that? When has the kid ever calmed down? When did my stress ever go away by someone telling me not to worry about it? Never. But we still feel tempted to do it. And it's insanity, right? Like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So let's keep our sanity. And instead of correcting their defensive response, we replace it with curiosity. We have to consider what's going on underneath the surface that is causing this response. So let's talk. Let's talk about why people get defensive in conversations, because it's almost never just about what you said. There's usually something going on deeper. Maybe it's they're afraid of messing up, afraid that they have failed, afraid of what people will think about them. Like, if I admit I didn't do this perfectly, everyone's going to think fill in the blank, right? And that fear can come out as defensiveness. And it can sound sometimes something like this. Okay, well, I guess I just can't do anything right, huh? Right? There's like some sarcasm in it. right? Another reason why people might respond defensively is they don't totally trust the environment. If they don't feel safe or they don't feel like they'll be treated fairly, they're way more likely to get a little spiky. And that might sound something like this. Why are you bringing this up now? Are you trying to say I'm not doing my job? Maybe they get defensive because they've had some bad feedback moments before. Maybe someone's been really harsh with them in the past, or maybe they were given some feedback, but they weren't given any tools. Like they didn't know how they could grow from that feedback. So now, even your gentle feedback can feel like criticism. So if that's the case, they might sound like, I already know what you're going to say. Or maybe they're defensive because they're legitimately defending their choices or the way that they've always done something, because sometimes a new idea or suggestion just feels like an attack on the old way, which for them might mean their way. So even if you're just trying to help, it feels like you're saying you've been doing it wrong, right? And a response like that from that person could sound like, well, that's how I've always done it and it works. Why in the world would we mess with it now? Or finally, maybe they're just scared to try something new. I mean, change can really shake people's confidence. And if they've only ever done something one way, suggesting a different approach can feel overwhelming or even impossible. And you might hear someone say, we've already tried that and it didn't work. Or, yeah, that would never work here because, and then the reason. And they dismiss it before ever even considering what you were going to say. When I just went through those reasons of why people might get defensive, did anyone specific come to your mind? It certainly did for me. So are those reasons, those underlying fears, an excuse to respond defensively? No, of course not. But that doesn't dismiss the fact that those existing fears are valuable pieces of information, right? They will help us as a leader get back to the point of the conversation while you're still caring for the person well. Because you see, you can't coach well unless you approach it with empathy and curiosity, not frustration or force, which is typically our natural response to a defensive response. Okay, so at this point, we aren't dismissing, we aren't fighting back. We're seeking to be curious, preparing to coach, right? We're going to lean in with this empathy, or at least try to do those things. But before we jump right into that coaching conversation to handle the defensiveness rightly and redirect the conversation back to the point of why we're having in the first place, you, my friend, need to prepare yourself. What do I mean? I mean, your tone and posture matters more than your words. And your tone and posture are an overflow of your heart. So to be ready to handle this well, you need to do a little heart check. And so you can do that by asking yourself 3 easy questions. Are you ready for them? 1, am I trying to win? 2, am I trying to fix? 3, am I trying to coach? Okay? Am I trying to win? Am I trying to fix? Or am I trying to coach? Now, why does that little heart check matter? Because the way you answer those questions shifts your whole mindset. If you realize you're just trying to win, or if you realize you're just trying to prove a point, you're not really showing up for the person in front of you. You're just trying to control the outcome. But if you're in the coaching mindset, you're reminding yourself, I'm here to help, not to dominate. I care more about the person than being right. And that shift grounds you. It helps you to lead with curiosity and compassion, not ego. It keeps the focus on what? On connection, right? Not control. And that's what actually moves the conversation forward in a healthy and helpful way. And now, if you find yourself in an emotional state where you don't feel ready to coach, it's okay to take a step back and circle back to this conversation. You do what you need to do, right? To get your mind in the right spot. Because we know none of us do this perfectly. Caring for people and for the work, friends, it is a super important responsibility, right? We know this. We feel the weight of it every day, and we're trying to do it as imperfect people. And sometimes we need to give ourselves the permission just to take a minute. Okay, so now you've done the heart check, You've kind of grounded yourself. You're not coming in swinging to win or to fix. You're showing up to coach, to guide. You're going to care about the person more than the outcome. So let's talk about what this actually looks like in the moment. When someone is shutting down or getting defensive after you've delivered feedback or a suggestion, because let's be real, this is the part where it's easy for us to freeze or to overreact or abandon ship altogether. But this is also where the growth can happen for both of you. Here's how I want you to think about it. 4 steps: reflect, regulate, reset, revisit. We're going to call that your coaching loop when defensiveness shows up. So, step 1 is reflect. Name what you notice gently. Start by naming what you're picking up on, but you're going to do it with care, right? This isn't about catching someone in the act or calling them out. It's about calling them in. You might say, "Hey, I noticed something seemed to just shift in our conversation right now. Can we just pause and talk about it for a second? Did you hear it's simple? It's calm. It's curious." You're showing them, I see you. I care. I am not here to bulldoze you. And the key here is making space for them to respond, which is what keeps the conversation going instead of letting the defensiveness shut it down. Okay, step 2, regulate. Help bring the heat down. Reflective listening, it's going to be your best friend here. So try something like, "It sounds like that feedback felt frustrating. Just help me understand what part of that didn't land well." Right? You're inviting them to stay in the conversation with you and not retreat from it. And you remind them gently, this is not about punishment. It's not about you're in trouble. It's I'm here because I care about your growth. You want to regulate the conversation so it stays productive and not confrontational. Because when they feel understood, they're way more likely to open up and listen. And this is also the moment where you can be open to feedback yourself. I mean, maybe the way you said it didn't sit well. So you are reflective listening, you're acting as a mirror and receiving what you hear, all while remaining calm. Okay, step 3, reset the tone to rebuild trust. So once things settle, now you're going to speak life into them, right? You're going to reestablish this relationship, this trust. You're going to say something like, "Hey, I believe in you. I'm not bringing this up to criticize you. I'm bringing it up because I know you care. I care too." And that posture, it's everything. You're helping them feel safe enough to lean in instead of shut down. And when they trust that your intentions are rooted in care, they're much more likely to hear you out. Okay, and finally, step 4 is to revisit. This is the important part. It's all important, but this is important. Once the emotional temperature drops, it's time to return to the point of the conversation, right? Don't avoid it. Circle back. You can do this with kindness. You can do this with clarity. You might say, "Okay, so back to where we started. Can we revisit that feedback now that we're both in a better space?" So you let them know, look, we're not going to sweep this under the rug just because it got uncomfortable. And you inside, right, internally, you're standing your ground by thinking, I brought this up because it really matters for their growth, for my team, right? You're standing your ground. By revisiting the feedback in this kind of calm space, you remind them that the goal is progress. It's not perfection. And you're in it together. So again, your coaching loop is this: reflect on what you're sensing, regulate the moment with calm and connection. Then you're going to reset the tone with a bunch of encouragement. And then you're going to revisit the core issue, right? You're going to get back to why you brought it up in the first place. And this coaching loop is just another example, friend, of why I believe that the best leaders, the best ones, they're not industry experts. They're not TED Talk speakers or HR specialists. No, they're just coaches. They're people who see themselves as coaches. And maybe as you hear this, you don't see yourself as a coach who's confident to know how to coach your team in any situation. And I get that. I led a nonprofit team for 10 years before I cracked the code on this one. But friend, you don't have to wait any longer because I created a free on-demand workshop that walks you through how to empower your team through coaching. And if this has been helpful at all so far, this episode, then you're going to love this free training. So go to heycarolist.com/workshop or grab that link in the show notes. Okay, let's zoom out for a second. Handling defensiveness in the moment is one thing, but real transformation happens when we create a culture where this isn't scary. It's just normal. So here are a few long-term strategies that will help you build that kind of environment. Okay, so first, build a feedback culture. And here is the thing. You don't have to draft some massive professional feedback system. You don't. Just make feedback a regular thing, not a surprise attack. Just keep it clear, keep it kind, keep it often. Do not wait until your next one-on-one. And please, 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 don't wait until a formal review. That is the worst. Just keep feedback as regular as saying good morning, right? Just a part of your day. And this includes all the positive feedback, by the way, also. Okay, second, challenge yourself to grow as a coach. Now, there are a lot of ways you can do this. And no, it doesn't involve going and getting a professional coach certification. You start by remembering to just ask a question instead of giving the answer. That's it. Just ask a question instead of giving an answer. Seek to understand your people more and more in each conversation with a curiosity that doesn't make any assumptions. If you've been listening to my podcast at all, you know I love this visual of a sphere in front of us. You can never see all the sides of the sphere at once. You can only see yours. So we go into every conversation just wondering with genuine curiosity, what does their side of the sphere look like? And we ask questions to find out. And we can also use tools like the Working Genius model to understand your team better. And if you don't know about Working Genius, you got to go back and check out my podcast episode. I'm going to leave the link in the show notes. But don't wait, my friend, because your people, they won't just magically change and grow without the guidance of an intentional coach. And that can be you. Okay, the third is encourage reflection. After a tough conversation, maybe like one of these, you can try asking, what did you take away from that? So you can let them own their growth. Don't do all the talking yourself. You can also circle back the next day and just ask, hey, how are you feeling after our chat yesterday? And just listen, just thank them for sharing. And finally, model it yourself. If you want a culture of openness, you got to show them what it looks like. You have to share a story, a time when you got tough feedback, how it helped you grow, and let them see that feedback is not a threat. It is a gift. So solicit feedback from your team as much as you can. And if they don't give you any, keep asking, because this takes time to get comfortable giving your boss feedback, right? Like that's not something that they're going to want to do naturally, but they will start to do it and keep doing it if you model what it looks like to receive it with gratitude and keep asking for it. And the overall big idea here, normalize growth. Just make it a part of how your team operates, not just something that happens when something goes wrong. Okay, you ready to land the plane? Let's do it. Next time that wall of defensiveness goes up with that person you're thinking about, and you feel that urge to either shut down or push harder or tell them they're being defensive, you're going to take a breath and come back to this. Reflect, regulate, reset, revisit. You're not trying to fix, you're coaching. And coaching means showing up with care, with curiosity, and just with a mindset that says, hey, I see you. I'm with you, and we can work through this. And friend, this is not always clean, and it's not always easy, but I promise it is so worth it. Because when you learn to stay steady in those moments, you actually build more trust. You move things forward instead of getting stuck. And best of all, you become the kind of leader people want to work for. And you're more than capable of this. All right? Okay. That's it for today. Friend, you've got what you need. You've got what it takes. And hey, if you haven't watched that free training, my workshop, go check it out. It's packed with all the practical tips to help you lead and coach with confidence and with connection, the things I'm so passionate about for you. And if this episode made you think of another leader who could use it, help a friend out and pass this episode along right after you finish it. Okay, friend, until next time, you know it. I'm cheering you on. Bye.